How's it going, fam? Welcome back to Erica's EDC, and today we're sharpening a Seedy knife. A beautiful little Seedy knife in CPM 1V. This thing really needs an edge. I've had to sharpen this a good amount during the testing this month. This is the test knife for October. It is a skinny dude made by Scott Larimore over at Seedy Knives. You all know him. You all love him. He's amazing. 1V does not have the best wear resistance. It's got really good high impact toughness, but in terms of edge retention, wear resistance, whatever you want to call it, not the best. So we have to touch it up a lot, and this is past the point of being able to be stropped back. I have to put it on the stones, so we're doing it together today freehand. So if you don't know what CPM 1V is, it is a kind of rare steel, obviously made by Crucible, which is no longer. So any of it that exists in the world right now is the only 1V that you will ever find. Very simplistic in composition. I believe it only has 5 elements. I think it's carbon, chromium, tungsten, vanadium, and moly. I think that's all it has. It's pretty unique. And it doesn't have anything spectacular to aid toward, again, edge retention or anything. It does have really fine carbides. It's got a little bit of vanadium, the 1%, that's why it's called 1V. 1% vanadium. I think it's 2.15% for tungsten. It's got like 2.75 for moly, something like that. And then, a little bit of carbon, a little bit of chromium. So it just, doesn't hold an edge forever, but that apex toughness, that impact toughness is ridiculous. It's really cool. So the good thing is, because it doesn't have a ridiculous amount of vanadium or tungsten or whatever for super hard vanadium carbides or tungsten carbides, we can sharpen this on something other than diamonds, which is fun for me, because a lot of super steels need diamonds to shine the best, okay? Because when sharpening, a lot of you guys know this, but if you don't, when you're sharpening, you need your sharpening stone, the abrasive within your sharpening stone has to be harder than your steel. So with super steels, if you have something that has ridiculously high tungsten levels, ridiculously high vanadium levels, you need diamonds, because diamonds are the only thing that will be harder within a stone than your steel, right? But the good news is, with 1V, it's only got a small handful of elements and nothing crazy, so we can use some fun stones. So today, I'll lower you guys down. We're going to use one of my favorite stones, which is the Sharpening glass series. This is a splash and go stone. This one is the 120 grit. And we're also going to use a couple of other stones that I'll show you as we bring them in to use them, but they're actually soaking right now. But this is a splash and go, which means that you literally just splash your mom and go. So we're gonna just let some water sit on here for a minute, kind of try to get this into the surface and the pores of the stone. But we're gonna start out with the 120 because this edge is completely toasted, completely dull. This thing is past the point of no return. We can't strop this back. It is a completely flat apex. So what I want to do is refresh that pretty well, and that's why I'm choosing the 120 grit. Very coarse, so this should move the steel pretty quick, and we'll kind of establish a nice new refreshed bevel, and then we will start refining. But these Sharpening glass stones are very, very nice. A lot of people use them. I know Steve Kalari likes them, or did like them. Kyle Noseworthy, big fan of the Sharpening glass stones. That's actually where I heard about these. But great stones. I have a whole set. I've got the 120, a 500, 1,000, no, 2,000, I think, and then like 16. Super, super fine. So I've got a number of them, but they're really, really nice. This one, as you can hear, is very gritty. This is going to completely expose some new, fresh steel very quickly. But like I said, I don't get to use these as often as I would like to because lately I've been testing a lot of super steel, and these just don't cut it for a lot of the stuff that I test. But the 1V has allowed me to have some fun with different sharpening stones without being tied to diamonds all the time, which is actually really nice for a change. Yep, so we already have a burr. This stuff has been super easy to sharpen. Very easy to touch up as well. You can get these stones and this stone holder from sharpeningsupplies.com. I'll try to remember to link them down below. No, I have no affiliation with them. No, I don't have any codes. No, I don't get paid. I do know them. They're awesome people, but I don't get anything from it, so don't worry. But they've got all of your sharpening needs. That's for sure. Yeah, so we've already got a burr for the most part. There's a couple spots that the burr is not as strong, and I just want to kind of get it all up to speed here. I've been using this thing like crazy, so it's got some really, really dull spots. Now, the cool thing about this knife in particular is that it is a Seedy Vex grind, which means it is a completely convex grind, but from the very get-go. So Scott has been famous, especially in the bushcraft side of the community, for quite a while, and his knives have what's called a Seedy Vex grind, which is, like I said, where it's a convex, but it starts right from the get-go. It's not like a Bark River where it starts at a certain point and then goes convex. The whole blade is convex, and he puts a bevel on them at the very end. So a lot of convex knives go to a zero grind. They don't come down to a secondary bevel. Scott makes it so that, you know, he puts a secondary bevel, or you can put one yourself, and you can determine what size bevel you want, which is really cool. So you can lay it way back if you want it to be super slicey and have better edge retention. You can make it more steep if you want to have some better stability and toughness, especially impact toughness at that apex, at that edge. So Scott's knives are just really, really user-friendly because you can, you know, cater to what you use your knife for, and this grind makes that very, very easy to establish new bevels if you want. You can really play around with what you want your bevel to look like depending on what type of tasks you do. And then obviously the Seedy Vex grind in nature leans toward great toughness overall anyway. Yeah, so we've got a pretty dang good burr. I think we're gonna flip this in a second. I just want to kind of even this out, and then we're gonna deburr and work on the other side. Yeah, that feels crazy, crazy. Okay, so we're going to do just a couple deburring passes here, just very gently. I like to kind of almost strop that burr off. It's a little bit hanging on at that belly. There we go. I just like to very gently remove that. Burr removal, burr formation, all of it is way more important than people think. So I really try to be careful with those burrs that are built up and deal with them properly. Just getting a feel for this side here. If I didn't have dog hairs all over everything, that would be pretty cool. Perks of having 5 dogs. Yeah, we already have a ridiculous burr. I want to just remove a little more material just to try to kind of even it up to the other side that we just worked on. Just really refresh this. But this knife has been so fun to use. It's just, it's a real knife. There's nothing crazy about it. No frills, no fancy stuff, just a real, actual knife. Wow, that is crazy, crazy strong. You can probably just hear how absolutely gritty this thing is. Got a lot of material coming off too. Good sign. This definitely needed it. Pretty toasted after this weekend. It did a lot of work. All right, so that is a more than big enough burr. Again, we're just gonna very gently kind of strop it off here. And you can use pine wood or a ceramic rod to do this, or a finer stone. You don't have to use the same stone that you're working on if you think it's too much. Okay. Do some back and forth passes here. I'm really excited to refine this on the other stones because this is going to be a very rough, janky edge. But it removes material really efficiently, so that's what we want. When a knife is that dull, we want to get that thing refreshed pretty quickly. Make sure we don't have any micro burr hanging on or anything. If we do, it's not that big of a deal because we can remove it with the 600 grit that we're going to turn to in a moment here. But she's definitely got, yeah, that's definitely feeling way better already. So let's start the actual refining process here, and we're going to move to a 600 grit Nanawa stone. All right, let's see what this edge is like off of that 120 grit Sharpening glass before we move on to the 600 grit Nanawa. So we've definitely got a nice edge foundation just off of the 120 grit. Very, very nice. Obviously, this can use some refinement, but we've got crazy amount of bite back. We have a great foundation to refine with, so we're going to move on to our fancy stones now. Okay, this one I've had soaking in some water here. And this stone was actually sent from Greg over at Deer Rock Knives. He's amazing. And I've been really enjoying this stone. So this one is a very nice, smooth, fine stone, but it's great at keeping an aggressive edge on your knife. All right. Get to work on this. The dog hair's driving me nuts, man. Dog hair all over the place. So you can just hear how silky that is compared to that first 120. Much, much nicer. Way nicer to use. This one really soaks up a lot of water, so I have to keep her hydrated. About as thirsty as your mom. But do you just hear the difference? So soft and fine compared to that 120. And this will start to kind of polish that bevel too. Now, 1V does not, from my experience, it doesn't want a polished edge because it slicks out too fast. So, we're not going for a mirror polish here by any means. We just want a nice, clean, edge. I do that every time. I always go off the stone when I'm looking at the camera, not looking at what I'm doing. We already have a burr. This is why I love sharpening 1V. It is a super fast, easy process. If you enjoy sharpening just like for fun, 1V is a blast because it's not a pain in the butt. And you can sharpen it on anything. So you don't have all those restrictions like, you know, a lot of super stales. But this thing is just, it's just fun. It's just fun to play with. It's fun to sharpen. That is crazy. Deburr. One pass did it. Work on this other side here. And I'm hoping you guys can see that this 600 grit, even though it feels very fine, it definitely is aggressive enough to remove material. I don't know if you guys can see all the material buildup on there. Wow, that burr is loud and proud, that's for sure. Do a couple more passes here. Yeah, that is ridiculous. All right. Do the same thing as before, go back and forth a couple times, hone this in. That is feeling really, really good. This model from Scott is such a pleasure to use. Even in sharpening, it's just a great knife that actually doesn't give you any trouble when you're, you know, maneuvering it around to hit the stone and stuff. Like it's just really nice, super comfortable. Nothing in the way when you're sharpening. I love it. The Skinny Dude. It's a great little knife. We're just really lightening up these passes here. I don't think Greg liked this stone a ton, but I love it. Granted, he's a knife maker, so I think the people that make the knives end up needing way different stuff than we do, which I get. I don't think this one really did much for him, but for me, just as a user, I love it. Just got a little piece of fur hanging on that side. That is starting to feel nasty. I think this is gonna be an absolute ripper when it's done, I think, because this 1V just gets stupid sharp with basically no effort. So we're gonna go to a 1000 grit stone now that Scott actually sent me, so let's check that out. Edge off of the 600 before we move to the 1000 grit. It's looking nice. It's got a little bit of shine, but not too much. We don't want it to be too polished. You can hear that we are way more refined now than off of the 120. Definitely a little bit of a more quiet cut. Still got some good aggression to just bite right away. We like that. So now we're just gonna do our final refinement passes, which I'm not gonna build up a burr or anything. This is really just gonna be honing in what we already have. So we're gonna be using a stone I've never used before, okay? Scott sent this to me, and this is a stone that he wasn't the biggest fan of. This is it, the Sharpening ceramic whetstone orange medium 1000 grit. He didn't really like this. Greg from Deer Rock Knives, who sent the blue stone, and I love his knives too. Greg supposedly loves this stone. So this will be interesting to see what I think about it, because Scott isn't a fan, Greg is, but Scott's the one that sent it to me. I cleaned it up and lapped it, got it really nice and flat and even, so I've never used this thing before. These will be kind of my first impressions as we do some final honing passes. Ooh, it feels very smooth, very nice. So Scott said that he thinks it feels more like an 800 grit. Scott does something cool where he uses a best tester with his edges, and he keeps kind of a catalog of different stones and what type of finish they leave and what type of best score they produce. He's got a real cool science behind it. So he said that in his best testing, this stone seemed to leave more of an 800 grit finish as opposed to a 1000, which it does feel a little more aggressive than other 1000 grit stones that I've used, like the resistance I'm feeling, the grit in general that I'm feeling, definitely it feels a little more gritty than a 1000 grit. I could see it being a little more like 800, like you said. But that's fine with me because I want to leave this at a little more of a toothy edge. Try to keep some of that bite there, some of that aggression. We do not want to glass this edge out. That would be big sad. Yeah, that feels great. Yikes, that's sticky. My skin wants to kind of stutter across that edge, catching on those teeth, which I like. That's what we want. Couple more passes here. And then I think we're going to hit it on the strop, and then we will see what our final edge is. Yeah. Let's do some, well, we'll do an edge check and then we're going to do some stropping. All right, so off of that 1000 grit stone that behaves like an 800 grit, see what our edge is like before stropping. That's called McNasty. That's nice. Bites right in. Got a good amount of tooth that I really don't want to lose. So let's do a little bit of stropping. We don't want to do too much though, because again, we don't want to overdo it. So I think what we're going to do is use my latest favorite compound, which is the Creeley Blades Sharp Condition. This is a piece of basswood that Greg sent me. As you can tell, I love Greg. We've got 6 micron, we've got 3 micron, and we've got 1 micron. And this is the Sharp Condition with the Chinese emulsion that Gary sent me. He is now using domestic emulsion, but this stuff still works fantastic. I think what we'll do is probably just a couple passes on the 6 micron, and then I'm probably going to leave it. I really do not want to lose any of this aggression that we have. So we'll do just a couple of light passes on here. Got to switch hands because I'm autistic. No, it's more like OCD, but whatever. Just very, very light. Letting that emulsion do its job. We don't want to be pressing into the wood. We don't want to be pressing so hard where we start to pick up the emulsion on the edge. We're just really letting the product do its job. And basswood is, in my opinion, the best stropping media that you can use. I love how firm it is. And I like it much better than balsa. I think we're going to leave it at that. I do not want to overdo this in any capacity. So, yeah, that is catching my skin. So final edge after all that. And you can just see how a few passes on that Sharp Condition just brings that edge to the next level. This is still a bitey, toothy, aggressive edge. But it is really, that Sharp Condition, just next level edge. I mean, that is really, really nice, guys. Just a little more quiet off of that 6 micron, a little more refined. But that is exactly where I want my 1V. there's the bevel. Hopefully you guys can see that. Not overly polished at all. We still have a crazy amount of bite. But that's really where I like to keep my 1V. It just does not have that carbide type and structure to support the polish for me. It just doesn't, it doesn't want it. There's not enough oomph in this steel to cater to that, really. This needs that nice, toothy, aggressive edge. It just does not have enough vanadium or anything in it to do anything crazy. So a nice kind of coarser grit edge on 1V is your best bet. But I think that turned out awesome. And it is nice and sharp now. As you can see, we have a very distinct bevel on there, even though it is a Seedy Vex. That is okay. Anybody that says that you can't put a bevel on a convex grind, I don't know why they say that. People make such a big deal out of convex grinds, bark rivers, all of the things. People talk about the cuckoo stuff with like, you have to sharpen it with sandpaper on a mouse pad because it's convex. You don't. I can promise you that you don't. You can just go about your merry way doing normal things. You can absolutely put a micro bevel or a bevel on a convex grind. Even if it gets to you and it's a zero grind, you can put a bevel on it. Does it take a little bit of work to get it to the right spot? Yes, but it's not illegal. I love having a bevel on this. And guys, when you're freehand sharpening, you will obviously have a convexity to your bevel or to your sharpening or your stropping or whatever anyway because of human error. So people make way too big of a deal out of sharpening convex or Seedy Vex grinds. You can absolutely use a stone. I have actually only really seen not great results from like the sandpaper on the mouse pad deal. Just be normal. It's okay. Nothing bad is going to happen. So this it's not a crazy bevel, but you can definitely see it. It's there. And nothing happens to this, especially because the steel has great toughness, but like, you're okay, I promise. So that was the freehand sharpening of the Seedy knives Skinny Dude in CPM 1V. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I will see you on the next video. Go use your shit. Learn how to sharpen your knives. And I'll see you guys on the next video. I love you so much, fam. Take care.